Have you ever watched someone's confidence disappear in a single heartbeat? I did, and the reason still haunts me. The courtroom had been quiet for hours. My parents sat confidently beside my younger sister, Riley, smiling as if the verdict had already been won. Their attorney looked relaxed. They truly believed they were minutes away from taking everything my grandfather had left me. Then, the judge opened one particular transfer agreement. His eyes narrowed. He read it once, then a second time. Suddenly, he pushed his chair back so hard it slammed into the wall. "Stop this hearing," he commanded. The room froze. He looked directly at the deputies. "Lock every exit. Nobody leaves this courtroom." The heavy doors slammed shut. My mother's face turned ghost white. Dad whispered nervously, What did he find?" Riley forced a smile, but I saw her hands begin to shake. I don't know," she muttered. For the first time that day, fear replaced arrogance. I sat perfectly still, my heart pounding against my ribs. I had no idea what the judge had discovered, but I knew one thing. Whatever was inside those documents had shattered someone's carefully crafted plan. 3 months earlier, I believed the hardest day of my life had been losing my grandfather, Edward Spencer. I couldn't have been more wrong. I'm Samantha Spencer, 29 years old, and for the past 10 years I've taught difficult, emotionally unstable teenagers that everyone else had already written off as hopeless. Every day, I broke up fights, calmed angry students, and reminded children that one mistake didn't define their future. People often asked why I stayed in such a difficult job. My answer was always the same. Because there was one person who once believed in me and never gave up on me. That person was my grandfather. While my parents built their entire world around Riley, Grandpa quietly became mine. When I brought home perfect grades, Mom barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice," she'd mumble. But when Riley totaled her second car, Dad wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Don't worry, sweetheart. Accidents happen." He bought her another car the following week. That was our family. Riley was always forgiven. I was expected to prove I deserved love. Only Grandpa never asked me to earn it. And I had no idea that his final act of love was about to expose the darkest betrayal our family had ever hidden. What would you do if the people who should love you the most hated you the moment you received what you never asked for? That's exactly what happened to me. The funeral ended beneath a gray Montana sky. I stayed behind until everyone else walked away, resting my hand on Grandpa Edward's casket. Jessie pressed against my leg, whining softly. It felt as if she understood we were saying goodbye forever. An hour later, we gathered in Grandpa's attorney's office. The room was silent. No one cried anymore. They were waiting for one thing, the inheritance. Attorney Harold unfolded the will. The ranch, 4 hotels on the West Coast, investment portfolios, and all remaining assets valued at approximately $14 million. Dad leaned forward. Riley smiled confidently. Are hereby left to Samantha Spencer. The room exploded. "What?" Riley screamed, slamming both hands onto the table. Mom shot to her feet. "She manipulated him." Dad pointed at me. "You turned my own father against us." Before anyone could speak again, Harold opened a sealed envelope. Mr. Edward Spencer left a personal letter. His voice softened. "Love isn't proven by promises. It's proven by who shows up. Samantha drove me to every appointment, stayed through every surgery, and never once asked for anything in return. The rest of you remembered me only when you needed money."
Tears blurred my vision. Every late-night hospital visit, every shared dinner, every game of chess suddenly came rushing back. Riley's face twisted with fury. "You're a liar," she shouted. "You stole everything." I slowly stood. "I didn't take anything," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I just never left him alone." The room fell silent. Mum stepped closer, her eyes filled not with grief, but with hatred. "This isn't over," she whispered. At that moment, I thought she was speaking out of anger. I had no idea those 4 words were a promise, and that my own family had already begun to plot to destroy my life. I thought my family would challenge Grandpa's will. I never imagined they'd try to erase me. The envelope that arrived that morning changed everything. 3 weeks after the funeral, I was back in my classroom, helping a troubled 16-year-old finish his first essay without giving up. For a few hours, life almost felt normal. Then I got home. Jessie greeted me at the door, happily wagging her tail. A certified envelope lay on the porch. I opened it. The first line stole the air from my lungs. Petition for adult guardianship. My parents claimed I was mentally unstable because I'd spent 10 years teaching troubled teenagers. According to them, I was emotionally damaged, incapable of managing money, and unfit to control my own life. They wanted legal authority over everything: my bank accounts, Grandpa's hotels, my home, even Jessie. I dropped into a chair, unable to breathe. Jessie rested her head on my knee. "They're trying to take you too," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. "I won't let them." The next morning, I met attorney Vincent Parkinson. After reading every page, he looked up. "This isn't about your mental health, Samantha." "It's about $14 million, I answered. He nodded. "Exactly." Within days, he exposed one lie after another. The psychologist's report had been written by a therapist who had never met me. Every diagnosis was fabricated. Then another bombshell exploded. Riley owed more than $3.5 million from years of gambling, failed investments, and private loans. "So that's why they're desperate," I said. Vincent wasn't finished. An anonymous email arrived with only 4 words: "Check the company, money at any cost." His investigators traced the company to Riley. It had been quietly created just weeks before Grandpa died. Hidden inside its files were forged transfer documents carrying my fake signature. Every hotel, every investment, every dollar of my inheritance was scheduled to be transferred there the moment a court declared me incompetent. I stared at the documents in disbelief. They hadn't simply planned to steal my inheritance. They had planned to steal my identity, my future, and my entire life. Just when I thought my family couldn't betray me any further, someone rang my doorbell and destroyed every lie they had built. It was nearly 9 p.m. at night. Jessie barked once, then strangely fell silent. When I opened the door, a nervous man stood on my porch, gripping a small flash drive so tightly his knuckles had turned white. "My name's Kyle," he said quietly. "I'm Riley's friend." Before I could respond, he looked down. "I can't live with this anymore." We sat in my living room. Jessie walked over, sniffed his hand, then rested beside him. Kyle's eyes filled with tears. "Years ago, your grandfather paid for my mother's cancer treatment. He never told anyone. If it weren't for him, she'd be dead." He placed the flash drive on the table. "This is my chance to repay him." Attorney Vincent Parkinson examined the files that same night. Emails, meeting notes, financial records. Then we played the recordings. Riley's voice filled the room. "Once Samantha is declared incompetent, every asset goes straight into money at any cost." Dad answered, "Transfer the hotels immediately."
Mum's voice came next. She'll spend years trying to prove we're lying. I closed my eyes. Every hope that my parents had simply been manipulated by Riley died in that moment. They weren't victims, they were partners. The hearing began 2 days later. One witness claimed I was unstable. Vincent calmly produced my award-winning teaching evaluations. Another insisted I frightened students. He responded with letters from parents thanking me for changing their children's lives. Then came the therapist. She confidently described counseling sessions that had never happened. Vincent asked one quiet question. "Can you show this court a single signed treatment record?" Silence. "No," she admitted. Her testimony collapsed. One witness after another unraveled under cross-examination. Their carefully scripted case was falling apart before everyone's eyes. Then Vincent reached into his briefcase and looked at me. "We're done defending you," he said calmly. "Now it's their turn to explain themselves." The next 5 minutes didn't just decide who would inherit $14 million, they exposed who my family had really been all along, and no one in that courtroom saw what happened next coming. Vincent rose without a word and placed 3 folders before the judge. "Your Honor, the guardianship petition isn't built on concern, it's built on fraud." First came the handwriting expert, proving every transfer document had been forged. Then Vincent revealed the fake psychological report. The therapist admitted she had never examined me. Finally, the courtroom speakers came alive. Riley's voice echoed through the room. "Once Samantha is declared incompetent, everything goes to money at any cost." Dad answered, "Move the hotels immediately." Then Mum's voice cut through the silence. "She'll never recover what's gone." The judge slowly removed his glasses. His face hardened. "Deputy," he said, "lock the doors. Nobody leaves this courtroom." Panic erupted. "It was Riley's idea," Dad shouted. "You agreed to everything," Riley screamed back. Mum broke down crying. The judge struck his gavel. "The guardianship petition is dismissed. Every document will be preserved, and this matter is referred for criminal investigation." Within months, money at any cost collapsed. Fraud charges, lawsuits, and investigations followed. I kept Grandpa's hotels, investments, and every dollar he intended for me. Later, my parents mailed me a 3-page apology. I read it once, then quietly put it away forever. That evening, I sat on Grandpa Edward's porch. Jessie ran across the yard chasing absolutely nothing, her tail wagging with the kind of joy only dogs seem capable of feeling. She returned, dropped a tennis ball at my feet, and looked at me with those impossibly trusting eyes. I smiled for what felt like forever. Kneeling beside her, I buried my fingers in her soft golden fur. "You're the only soul in this world who has never wanted anything from me except love," I whispered, scratching behind her ears. Jessie leaned against me with a contented sigh. "You'll never betray me, will you?" Her tail thumped happily against the porch. I laughed through tears. As the sun disappeared beyond the Montana hills, I finally understood Grandpa's greatest inheritance wasn't $14 million. It was the courage to stop chasing love from people who had already chosen greed over family. For 29 years, I waited for them to choose me. That day, I finally chose myself. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments, would you ever forgive family after a betrayal like this?